with the typical alien's face with the bubble eyes, but it was glowing and you could see through it. You could see the ceiling through it as if it were a hologram of some kind. And it was glowing looking at him, and he said it slid across the ceiling, went across the ceiling, hit the wall, and came down to where it was even with him sitting in bed. And at that moment in his head, he began to see the room going in circles. He could see the window behind him going around, the door going around. The room was moving in circles. Obviously, it was some sort of an optical thing that was happening. And he said, but the face stood still while the room began to rotate. But Ivy, in my room, was laying so that she could see the door. And she said she saw the glowing on the wall, but she couldn't tell what the light was because it wasn't very bright. And she said, but when she opened her eyes to see the glowing of the light in Paul's room, which was the face on the wall, a little red, tiny little red dot of light came through Paul's room and came in and hovered over her. A little red, tiny light, which incidentally is in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters. Every time you saw the saucers go by, you saw this little light going around. Ivy said she saw this little light come in and hover right above her, and at that moment she was totally paralyzed. Couldn't move, couldn't cry out, couldn't do anything. All she could do is breathe and just. And she said she laid there totally paralyzed, looking at this light, and when the glowing went through the wall, that little red light went out and followed it. It was gone. Now, I slept through all of this. I didn't see any of it. I'm just telling you what they said. But I know them, and they're not given to making up stories, either one of them. And so I said to them at the time in the restaurant, I said, well, they didn't wake me. And Pat, the owner of the restaurant, she said, no, they know who you are. They just wanted to know who your companions were. When I got back to Los Angeles, about 3 months later, I was in San Diego working at a company down there as an editor for a magazine. And I decided, this was in late spring, I decided to rent a convertible and drive back up to Area 51 by myself, and no one knew this, and go back out to where we had this experience by myself, which I did. And I drove out there in the afternoon when the sun was still, it was dusk, but the sun was still up, because I wasn't about to go out there by myself at night. And I parked the car in the convertible. I parked the car. I sat on the back hood with my feet in the back seat, and I said to them, I said, look, I know you're here, okay? And I want you to know that I don't mind doing whatever it is I'm supposed to do. If I've got a destiny in life or a mission or whatever it is, I don't mind doing it. But if it has something to do with you, then I'm going to ask you for two favors. Do not abduct me, because I don't want to go anywhere. And don't frighten me in my bedroom. I don't want to wake up and find something in my bedroom I can't handle, okay? So don't mess with me, and don't scare me to death, and I don't want to go anywhere. But if I'm supposed to do something, if there's a divine plan of some sort where I'm supposed to play, then open the doors, show me what I am to do, and leave me alone. And I thanked them, and I got back in the car and drove back, and that was it. About a month later, now we're at the beginning of summer, I get a phone call from Paul, my publisher, who lives in Escondido, right down by San Diego. And he's telling me about this young lady who was a past life regressionist. And he said, you got to go see this girl. She's sensational. Being a very spiritually inclined past life regressionist type of person, she has you lay on the table and take your rings off and your watch, and she's setting up the candles and lighting candles and doing some sort of a little ritual thing. And I'm just laying there watching her. I mean, Paul says she's great. We'll find out. And she's talking to someone. And I'm laying there watching her, and she's talking to someone. And I said, who are you talking to? And she said, oh, I'm talking to your friends who brought you here. And I said, oh, okay. Brought me to your house? She said, no. Your friends who brought you to the earth. You've come here from another place, and they have brought you here to do something. I said, I've often wondered about that. Where did I come from? I mean, really, what am I doing here? And she says, well, and I'm just telling you what she said. She said, they are Pleiadians, and they have brought you here to do something. And you are ultimately going to be a emissary, was the word, an emissary for them. They're going to channel through you. They're going to use you, and they will speak through you. And they have been preparing you for many, many years. I said, oh, okay. I don't know. And then she goes on lighting some more candles, and then she starts talking again, and then she's laughing. And I said, what are you laughing at? And she said, oh, they told me something funny about you. And I said, what? And she said, they said that about a month ago you drove up to see Joe and Pat up at Little Alien Inn in a convertible you rented, and you sat on the back of the hood with your feet in the back seat, and you told them you didn't mind doing what you're supposed to do, but you didn't want to be abducted or frightened in your bedroom, and they thought that was funny. Now at that moment, I became very disorientated. I said, whoa, nobody knew I did that. No one knew I did that. I didn't tell anyone. And she said, yeah, they knew. She said, they're telling me you went back out there because you didn't want to go out there at night because they scared you the last time. But that you went out there and sat on the back of your car, and they thought that was funny. And I said, why would they see humor in a human being frightened? And she said, because if you knew who you really were, you know, that would sound kind of silly. And so I respected that. I am just telling you what she said. But to me, that was a very powerful emotional experience talking to her, because she told me things that no one could have known but myself. Recall, as I have brought out in your program before, that my mother's uncle worked at the Vatican Secretary of State's office in the and in that capacity he was privy to many things going on in the world of intrigue and international politics, and the things he used to talk about when I was a child about the occult or hidden wisdom behind the world scene, and the hidden implications of the symbols and emblems and the religious philosophies, and how all these things are all enmeshed in politics. And the mafia runs this town. I personally know that. Los Angeles is run by the mob. If you don't think so, they got their own license tags. The mafia has its own license tag that the police department does not touch. They see a mafia license tag, they do not touch it. I'm not going to get into that. But I can tell you that the mafia and the mob runs this country. And the Catholic Church is behind the mob. Period. And I grew up in my hometown having two uncles who were federal judges. My great-grandfather was a senator from the state of Florida, a very powerful man, and he died in office because they couldn't get rid of him. Why? Because he was mobbed, and everybody knew.